Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live Animation Vocation. I'm your host, creative content lead. Is that my title? Yeah. Creative content lead, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live Animation Vocation before, that's where we take about an hour, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter, depending on meetings and stuff like, at the end of our week, and we sit down with some of our incredibly talented CIG developers, and we discuss all aspects of their work, their career, who they are, what their favorite episode of Jerry Springer is. You know, we're really kind of open to a whole host of things. Joining us on the show this week is one of my favorite people. Not just favorite employees, one of my favorite people, a genuine mensch in the best sense of the words, lover of tiki drinks and the tiki bars that house them. Animation director, Mr. Steve Bender. Steve!
Thank you, Jared. Thank you for having me.
You're here.
I am.
Now, you're not just here as a visiting, you are the latest in a small but esteemed group of individuals who have now permanently relocated to Manchester.
That is very true. So about, was that April 20th? If you notice the weather was really nice and everything like that, that was literally, I brought that out from California just for you.
You moved on April 20th?
I did.
I moved on April 22nd.
Really?
Yeah, I just completed my first year of penance here.
So we're April buddies.
Oh. So, you're animation director.
Yes.
Oh my God. Eric the Nomad's like, awkward. Only for you. It was
pues está ahí el animation director de animación.
Because every show is somebody's first, and because we haven't had you on the show in a couple years.
I know.
Not since before the pandemic. I don't think we ever had you on during the I can't remember. Maybe. I've done a lot of these.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep them straight. Tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Yeah, so you said my name's Steve Bender. I'm the animation director at Cloud Imperium. And I oversee the creation of animation largely for things like the player and for the AI in the game. I also shoot motion capture, direct motion capture. I work with the different designers and design leads in laying out, working to figure out how something's going to work, what animations need to go in there, how they combine, and things like that. So I'm really lucky in that I have myself, I have a great team, a great animation team that works on this project. So it's not me doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm working with these talented animators.
You say it's not me doing it, but
yeah.
I have seen you inside the suit with the ping pong balls on more than one occasion.
Well,
sometimes it is.
That is true. Sometimes late.
Chicos, una cosilla. Me pone aquí que la conexión es inestable. ¿Vosotros veis que es inestable también el directo? ¿Os va mal? Un saludo, sargento Puchos. Un sargento Puchos, madre mía. Un saludo, Puchos. ¿Está yendo mal el directo, chicos? Buenas, Locus.
If you have seen Steve Bender before on one of these shows, you already know this is going to be one of those shows. So, let's today. Obviously, you know, there's nothing that directly applies to the beginning. We're not going to talk about the game and the current state and whatnot stuff like that.
Vale, parece que ya está estable.
We're going to talk more about animation in general and its role.
Vale, está hablando que este señor, pues, Steve Bender, que es la persona encargada de supervisar lo que es todas las animaciones de Star Citizen. Y bueno, supervisa, no es la única persona, supongo, pero supervisa las animaciones de Star Citizen. Y aparte de esto, también hace tiradas de mocap para capturar movimiento.
That facial animation crew is also involved in that.
So let's start from the perspective of the player. Obviously, our game is a first-person universe. The player experiences everything from the first person, but they do also have the option of switching out to third person for cinematics. But then every other person sees your character from third person and stuff like this. Talk to me about what animation does for the player. Is there? You've had this conversation for years and years. Your experience goes back to Crytek and before that stuff. But let's talk about what is and isn't animation, for instance, for players. I've jumped into the game. I'm a player character. There's all the things I can do, from takedowns to firing an MP4 to running around and catching the thing. What is animation? What parts of that experience are directly related to animation?
It's the character motions. So things like, for instance, when you're doing those takedowns, your hands in the view, or if you're kicked out to third person or they're seeing you in third person, the third person animation of the third person view of that happening, the victim who ends up being quite unfortunate in that. That's all character animation. As well, our guys will author motion for the view, especially in the case where they're doing particular actions, so in the takedowns and stuff like that. Because
Bueno, están comentando de... Aparte que lo que estábamos hablando el otro día, de que, bueno, pues esta persona es una de las personas que trabajaba en Crytek y ahora trabaja en Cloud Imperium Games. Nos estaba comentando también el tema de en qué partes del juego toca lo que es el character animation, ¿no? Que es a lo que se dedica este señor. Dice que desde lo que es los gestos que nosotros vemos cuando estamos en primera persona de las manos, hasta cuando acuchillamos a un notas, o la vista que tenemos en tercera persona del personaje. Incluso también tocan, en caso de que haya escenas de acción, de movimiento, de cosas que pasen en la cámara también, desde el punto de vista de la perspectiva del jugador, pues también es algo en lo que están involucrados.
those hands and that camera.
That's weird. So it's like, so many of the action, from running to jumping to climbing, like this, you make a good point that from the first person, you have to kind of convey all those things through hands.
Yes.
Are there some activities where maybe if it was in real life, you probably wouldn't see your hands in front of your
Absolutely.
face, but in the video game world, you have to, because it's the only way to communicate that to the player?
Absolutely. So for
Claro, están diciendo una cosa interesante, ¿no? Que dice que en la vida real puede que no veamos las manos al estar escalando. Bueno, al estar escalando sí, pero... a la hora de nosotros realizar acciones, ellos tienen que tienes que tener en cuenta de que se tienen que ver las manos del personaje para poder comunicar lo que está sucediendo, ¿no? Que es una ayuda para comunicar lo que está sucediendo con el jugador, al jugador en el juego con su personaje en ese momento.
down here, there's no peripheral. Unless you look down, you don't see it. So if I'm going to reload and I'm reloading down here, so my view box is open and I can look around, if I show exactly that in the view, I'm from my eyeballs, I'm not going to see this action. When I reload in real life, I'm not looking down to see this. I can feel where that button is.
You can do it down against your torso.
I go like this, and I pull this mag out, and the way that I hold that mag, when it goes back into the pistol, it's by feel. I can do it in the dark. So I don't need to have it in my view. That's just one simple example from combat.
Que está diciendo uno de los ejemplos, por ejemplo, de cosas que tienen que sobremostrar, vamos a decir, para dar la sensación de que el jugador está haciendo cosas, para comunicar esas acciones, es cuando estamos recargando un arma, ¿no? Que dice pues que nosotros cuando estamos apuntando, que está señalando con el dedo, cuando estamos apuntando y estamos en ADS, ¿no? Pues que a la hora de recargar, nosotros en el juego vemos como la acción de cómo recarga lo que es la bala, o sea, el cargador. Pero en la vida real sería por sensaciones, es decir, tú podrías recargar un arma en la oscuridad, no necesitas la información visual, pero sin embargo, pues en el juego sí se tiene en cuenta, sí se añade para... Es un ejemplo de cosas que se añaden extra a lo que es la visual de la realidad para comunicar que el jugador está haciendo cosas.
Right now, I know my arm is on this chair because I can feel it, but if I can't feel it, how do I know it's there? So in the case of it's the same concept. So there's lots of things that go on as you're moving through your everyday world that you know where things are. You know your hand is here. It's not just all of a sudden you're going to turn around and hit you in the head, right? So, but in a first-person view, in a first-person game, you don't know where that thing is unless we show you. So, and the trick is, you don't want to be walking around all the time with your hands like this, because that's just creepy. Nobody does that.
Stanton Strangler says, is this actually live? It seems cut. He thinks you're doing a good job, David. He thinks it's professionally cut. He's just doing it live. So you have to bring all these things up kind of somewhat artificially, into the view so the first-person player can see it. How's that play to third person, though? Obviously we're...
Sí, está comentando un poquito el tema de cuando dices así con la cabeza y tal, de que en la vida real tú sabes, o sea, entiendes lo que te rodea, pero al jugar en primera persona, ¿cómo haces para transmitir la sensación de que estás ubicado o posicionado en una postura determinada o relacionado con un objeto? Pues están indicando eso, que tienes que al desarrollar lo que es el juego en primera persona, pues tienes como que tratar de exagerar eso un poco, ¿vale? Pero que tampoco puedes estar con las manos así, con el personaje corriendo así todo el rato, porque sería absurdo, ¿no? Pero, o sea, tiene que tener o sea, hay que equilibrar eso, ¿no? Que sin pasarse, pero también dando, o sea, exagerando un poquito lo que es la realidad en ese sentido, ¿no?
Look, that's going to look decent in first and third person.
So every time, I mean, I know the answer to this, but every time you're reviewing an animation, you have to find this sweet spot between what works for first person and what works for third person.
Yes.
So, and a single player game would never have to worry about that. And what I tend to find because you just see everything from the first person, I guess. And then in a lot of Battlefield style games, it's all about speed so much they can sometimes just kind of cut and make it really quick to kind of get you back. But we're always pushing for that greater sense of realism whenever we can. And I know there was a lot of work that went into unifying that first and third person stuff. Talk to me about that work. Old heads, people who have been following the project, you're gonna already know what this is, but there's a lot of people that have never heard us. You talk about this process of unifying the first and third person perspectives.
Oh, wow, that's a whole...
It was an easy thing. That was like a week's worth of work, right?
No, no, it was not.
He's got spirit in the sky, like he's going through a Vietnam flashback right now.
Just a moment
this
here.
This is a safe space, Steve.
Oh my God.
You can't. Nobody can hurt you here. It's just memories.
Because of how the third person animation. So if you just put a third person animation on a character, and you have your camera, if you want your camera coming from the head, and you put a third person animation on a character and you move around, you are going to be seeing this down here. It's not going to look right. But yet we still need to be able to control certain aspects for the player in sort of the player's space. Any move that I make in third person, and I go like this, all of a sudden in first person camera looks like this. It's enormous. So what we had to do is take that third person animation and then lock it down with sort of like an aim pose, if you will, on top of it, and then add certain actions on top of it, so certain motion on top of it, which we could then craft that sort of control on it.
You mentioned if you want the first person view to come from the head, that skirts the fact that there are many games out there where the first person camera is not physically where the head of the person would be. No. It's we never think about it. We just kind of accept the reality of the game that we're playing. But oftentimes the first person camera would be located somewhere around the chest, which is the shortcut to keeping hands and everything into face.
Exactly.
But we because I don't know, we don't know better. We put the camera in the head. We put it like in the eyes. You know, everybody who's played Star Citizen has had that time where the camera gets kind of off-centered, and you can see the eyeball. You can see your own eyeballs, you know, floating in front. Like we don't cheat it. We put the camera where the eyes are supposed to.
Claro, está comentando un poquito el hecho de a la hora de los juegos, de que tienen que hacer un poquito de truco en lo que es la cámara, porque si la cámara estuviera pegada a lo que es la cabeza, a la hora de moverse y tal, pues que sería una locura la cantidad de turbulencias que tendría la cámara, por llamarlo de alguna manera. Entonces tienen que pasarlo pues como por una especie de filtro y luego pues para poder anclar ciertos parámetros para que sí, que se siga moviendo de una tal, pero que no sea un abuso. Luego comenta Discolando una de las cosas que hacemos en Star Citizen, porque bueno, pues no tenemos remedio, ¿no? Lo dices de alguna manera un poco distinta, pero viene a decir eso. Comenta el hecho de que en muchos de los juegos, para poder conservar lo que es la imagen de las manos y demás, la cámara sale de lo que sería el pecho, el torso. Pero en Star Citizen, pues sale de los ojos. O sea, no hacemos no hacemos trampas en eso, sino que lo enseñamos, lo ponemos del ojo. De hecho, en algunas ocasiones pues hemos visto cómo el juego da el fallo de que la cámara se desposiciona del punto, la cámara de vista en primera persona, y vemos a través del ojo, ¿no?
Some other game would do it, and yeah, that's how many other games have done it. And everything. But we part of this, you know, endeavor we're on, and part of what I really like about working for CR is he'll always kind of push. Well, okay, so no other game does it that way, but is it because they just haven't figured it out?
That's very true.
Or something. So we tend to push, you know, into things like that.
Claro, está diciendo, de hecho, una de las cosas que dice ahora mismo Descolando, dice, es una de las cosas que me encanta de trabajar con Chris Roberts. Es el hecho de que dice, cuando se refiere a poner la cámara en lo que es en los ojos y demás, dice, pero otros juegos no tienen esto. ¿Pero por qué no tienen esto? Porque no han descubierto una forma de cómo resolverlo, ¿no? Entonces es como que a Discolando le gusta esa parte de ambición que tiene Chris Roberts a la hora de empujar los límites en el videojuego, claro.
Is I pinch myself on the other side of the body, because that pain, right, causes my brain to go over here, so I don't feel this. And I know I caused this, so that doesn't hurt at all. I have been pinching myself for the past 5 minutes, Jared.
You're listening to Secrets of the Animation Directors, only at twitch.tv/Star Citizen. All right, so obviously animation is absolutely essential to the player. I mean, it is everything that a player does in one way, shape, or form. Let's move on to that second pillar. You talked about AI.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that everything involved with AI, everything an AI does, everything an AI says, every way an AI behaves is the sole purview of AI programmers or AI engineers. But I don't think it's often understood just how much of the AI experience is actually animation based. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So we were actually talking about this the other day, in that I hate the word AI. And the reason I hate the word AI is because, so from a code standpoint, a entity goes from point A to point B, and then it goes here and it goes to point B, and then it goes over there and it goes to point C or whatever. I forgot what letter.
I wasn't going to point it out.
Did you notice that?
But I was impressed. I was impressed you got there.
It can do whatever it wants. It can go down the hallway and immediately turn around. I mean, like this, and flip around and go back, because it's an entity. But human beings don't react that way, right? There are decisions that you can make from a code standpoint, where you say, my guy is going to strafe to his left. He's holding a rifle. He's going to strafe to his left, and he's going to go up that staircase, right? Anybody who's ever tried to, and if you haven't,
It's going.
like get out of your chair right now and go do it.
Strafe upstairs.
Try and strafe upstairs while pointing something. It doesn't have to be a gun. You can go get a spoon or something, and concentrate on whatever you're pointing at, and try not to fall up the stairs, right? That sort of thing, an entity can do it. A person can't. And the key here is that the animation's job is to, in each of the animations, to look like a real person doing something. But then also the animation's team's job is to work with the AI programmers and the AI designers to talk about how something that's happening is that's not what a person's going to do. Like, for instance, the other day we had an instance where the pathing code.
Claro, está comentando el hecho de que el trabajo de la animación también está bastante relacionado con lo que es la inteligencia artificial. Y comenta, dice, no me gusta la palabra, o sea, odio, de hecho dice, odio la palabra inteligencia artificial cuando se habla de tal, porque al final dice que, mira, esto en realidad es una entidad, que una entidad va de un punto A a un punto B y luego hace un giro a un punto C, pero claro, una entidad esto lo hace y lo puede hacer de forma brusca, de forma instantánea, cosa que no es el comportamiento de una persona, de un humano, ¿no? De un ser humano. Entonces, el equipo de Character Animation se encarga de que, o sea, se encarga de que cuando hay o sea, se encarga de trabajar mano a mano con los programadores de inteligencia artificial para que cuando hay que realizar pues una travesía, una acción, o los NPCs van a hacer una determinada acción, se aseguran de que eso sea algo creíble desde el punto de vista de que tiene un comportamiento pues razonable, ¿no?
The entity looked like a person who, like, he forgot his keys and he was going back, and you bought it. It was believable.
The AI animation, the only reason I really want to get to this topic, and I'm glad we're on it right now, is that there are many things that contribute to immersion.
Yeah.
In a game, and everybody knows, one of Star Citizen's big, buzzwords is immersion. Having a fantastically drawn environment, with a fully realized atmosphere and proper, lighting that behaves. Those are all insanely important. But all the a soundscape, things echoing the way that you expect them to, voices coming from the direction they're supposed to come. All those things are super important. But when you see characters, non-player characters, do that 180 instant, and to retract like unless they're the Queen's Guard in front of Buckingham Palace, watching all this stuff, it's one of those things that instantly breaks your immersion.
Yeah.
It's so animation is one of those tools that it doesn't get the same spotlight that fog and lighting and sound does, but it's absolutely essential to making a place feel alive.
Claro, dice que la animación no es una herramienta, ¿no?, que se utiliza para el desarrollo de los videojuegos, no es algo que reciba el mismo crédito que lo que puede ser la iluminación o niebla, es decir, efectos que tal, pero que es algo esencial para lo que es la credibilidad del juego, el comportamiento de cómo son los personajes o el personaje que utiliza el jugador, ¿no? Es fundamental que eso vaya bien para que sea creíble.
It's like, oh, I gotta go back and do this. The people in the mess hall who are going down, and then they get this and they get this, and they kind of think for a second. It's like, okay, no, I'm going to get this. It's those moments, just those tiny moments of I don't know what you call them, that insert, that animation insert, that consideration or whatever, is the difference between a ship that seems pristine and kind of, oh, that's a nice model, and suddenly now it's a place that's lived in.
It's about thought, right? So when I talk about that, I try not to use the word AI a lot. and I try and use character or people or Doug Johnson or something like that, right? It's about keeping in mind that the people moving through, the entities moving through the world are supposed to be people. And
Claro, ahora acaba de explicar lo que es el tema de por qué, o sea, el por qué no le gusta la palabra inteligencia artificial, el por qué tiendan a usar la palabra inteligencia artificial a la hora de escribir lo que son los NPCs que hay por el mundo y tal, y que se refiere a ellos como personas, como gente, es por el hecho para recordar de que esos son... es para una cuestión de su trabajo, de tener en cuenta, de tener presente que la gente tiene que moverse como personas vivas, ¿no? O sea, tiene que tener un comportamiento natural. Por eso, ese tema de diferenciarlo de lo que es una inteligencia artificial, el concepto de inteligencia artificial, pues se ve que lo relaciona con algo más artificial, ¿no?
let's cut that out, let's trim that together, let's make that flow. We had another example where one of our animators had said there were people picking up crates and moving them, and we have to have a technical point in the behavior where the AI needs to check where it's going to go next, where it's going to path to next. And where they had placed that point with the myriad of different fragments that they had that contained animations was after the guy picked up the box. And so he picked up the box and stood there like this and then walked off. And it was sort of like, once you get over the age of 40, if any of your viewers have experienced that, you have these moments all the time.
Me.
But we talked about where we could, okay, if it needs to happen there, you could have the box there and go, sort of look around. Where am I supposed to go with this? Or we could shift it earlier. So we come in, we acquire the box, or we know what box we're going to use. We pull out a data pad, and as we're doing this, the AI's pathfinding to where it needs to go. The second it finishes, we put the data pad away, pick the box up, and move. So how do you hide those sort of choice points or those pathing issues that the AI need to make? They're not as big of an issue when you have a
Claro, está hablando de una cosa interesante, que es el tema de que estamos hablando de que cuando un NPC pilla una caja, que no se queda así parado como un gilipollas, sino que en el momento que pilla una caja para calcular el tiempo o lo que es la ruta que tiene que calcular, que se pueden utilizar técnicas como para esconder esos momentos en que la máquina tiene que pensar para poder establecer la ruta que tiene que utilizar ese NPC con la caja, y que una de las cosas es pues estar así mirándola hacia los lados mientras pilla la caja, pero discutiendo también discutiendo sobre el tema, debatiendo sobre el tema a nivel interno, pues también está la posibilidad de que se saque un pad de datos, una tablet, un datapad, y empezar a mirar lo que es en el datapad la ruta y luego pillar la caja y entonces ya moverse al sitio, como para esconder el tiempo necesario que necesita el NPC para poder calcular la posición a la que tiene que moverse cuando tenga la caja.
It doesn't just instantly know where everything is. Like, grabs this, does a little, doesn't just grab it and put it down. He does a little and puts it down and slides. It's just those moments, those little tiny animation moments are, to me, where everything wins or loses. It's like that. That's where you've succeeded. It's everybody knows the.
Claro, está diciendo Escolando que para mí esos momentos en los que el personaje hace ese tipo de movimientos extra, ese tipo de acciones extra, es donde está donde si se gana o se pierde, ¿no? En el sentido de si se ha logrado el objetivo de poder transmitir la sensación de que está ocurriendo algo y de que ese algo es creíble, que lo compran, ¿no? Que es creíble que está sucediendo.
Moments in between, and people wrote much of the entire game off of that. Now, there's going to be somebody in chat that's like, no, that game sucked and I have 50 other reasons. Not what we're talking about here. But that moment, that one failed animation, turned the tide on a lot of the reception of that game. It's it's so important. So let's move into facial animation.
Yeah.
Now, how important is facial animation to selling the believability of the characters that you're interacting with, to telling a story?
Well, one of the things that is really kind of interesting, and you can actually test this right now in the game, and you can do it as players to players, if you're using the VoIP system, for instance, is put your helmet on. Put on an opaque helmet and look at what you're looking at. And what you're going to find out is that you're looking at the person in general, right? And, you know, he's waving, or he's doing this, or he's pulling out this weapon, or whatever he's doing. The second he takes that helmet off, you're looking at his face. Everything happens right here. So much of our...
Que está diciendo es cuando bueno, vamos a seguir con el tema. Cuéntanos cuán importante es las animaciones faciales para la credibilidad del juego, para que nos creamos el juego. Y dice, pues esto lo podemos ejemplificar tratando de experimentarlo ahora mismo en el juego, incluso con el VoIP, ¿no? Que es el tema de que te reconoce la cara y tal. Nosotros podemos ver a un jugador, nos podemos poner ponerle un casco opaco, ¿no? Que no se vea la cara, y pueden hacer emotes como hacer el saludo con la mano, lo que sea. Pero en el momento que se quita el casco, o en el momento que muestra la cara, toda la acción o la atención la centramos en lo que es la parte de la cara.
Coming onto a character. We had a perfect example of that yesterday. There was a character sitting on a bunk bed, and they were looking at a mobiGlass, and their feet were moving a little bit. They weren't kicking them back and forth or anything like that, but they were like, and you're looking at my face right now, I can tell you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But, right, they're doing this. And one of the designers said, well, we need sad, we need happy, we need nervous animations for this bunk bed. And it was like,
For the person on the bunk bed.
Do you? Because what if I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's awesome. Or I'm like, oh God, oh, I don't think we're gonna make this. Or, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
That's your one.
That's my one.
Your one. Mark it, David. That's his one.
So, but that is that's an example of just from a body animation standpoint. Then you put in on that face, and you get a sort of deeper performance.
So let's.
Claro, están comentando de que a nivel interno discutieron lo que nos acabamos de encontrar ahora, ¿no? Pues haciendo la misma postura con lo que es las piernas y el brazo y tal, cómo cambiando los gestos de la cara daban diferente profundidad, como de nerviosismo, de emoción o de descontento, ¿no? Solo con lo que es la animación facial, aunque estuviera haciendo lo mismo con los piececitos y con el brazo, ¿no? Pero solo con lo que es la animación de la cara, pues ya le daba otro tipo de color, otro tipo de profundidad a la acción. Así de importante pues es la animación facial.
The same markers, they use the same cameras, they use the same software, they use the same, we'll bring things in from Motion Builder in, and we will, be able to previs or previs as well in the engine. It's all the same hardware, same technology. Where performance capture adds a second layer is when you then add the helmet and the audio. So as well, in fact, in motion capture before, we've had the body suit and the helmet on with the camera on recording. But because we weren't recording any audio, it wasn't, you could sort of like, well, that's not really performance capture, right. But you are grabbing the facial animation at the same time as the body. But the whole point of performance capture is that back in the day, what you used to do is you used to capture the body animation, and then you would capture the face and audio somewhere else, or you would capture the face. You do the game I worked on ages and ages and ages ago. We did the audio first, so they recorded everything. They had all their lines. We had to put that together into track view and line it up along with our block out animations. Then we went and we pantomimed essentially body-wise to those audio lines. And then after that was done, we had in fact, the current technical vice president here wrote this software where we had video, and I would, in the case of this character, I mimicked the lines that the actor said, and also watching the body, and we used that to drive the facial animation. So we had to do it in multiple parts, whereas in performance capture, you just capture it all at once, and you can master the audio from that audio that you've created that day.
Now, that's not to say that there isn't a performance aspect to even mocap. I mean, we've not to get too far into it, but even just before the show, we were looking at some mocap for a particular animation and going, it's like it's we're not going to use any names, so we're probably, but it's like, oh, I wish the performer had done this better and whatnot. So I mean, there's still you just like a mime. There's performance even with your body.
Well, I got into the suit. We had to do. I was capturing. So right now in the PU, can I talk about walk cycles as an example?
Oh, please! I've been waiting.
Okay. A lot of the characters are walking. They're walking very static, like this, because of how the B spaces are authored. And I was like, I can't stand looking.
Está comentando que en el pasado, para poder hacer las cosas en los videojuegos, por un lado se grababa el audio de las conversaciones y por otro lado se grababa lo que es el movimiento de lo que es los gestos de la cara o lo que tuviera que hacer el personaje, y que todo eso pues se tenían que juntar piezas, se tenían que hacer rejuntar piezas para luego montarlo, ¿no? Y que pues a diferencia de lo que es una verdadera performance, una verdadera actuación en el mocap, que pues también se graba el sonido, se masteriza el sonido y es el propio actor el que pues es grabado con los gestos, y también al mismo tiempo pues la voz es suya, ¿no? Que es diferente.
Character, and we wanted a tough guy character. So I was performing that day. I had to get into the role and stuff like that. So I was listening to some heavy metal and stuff like this for the tough guy. And then for the injured character, it didn't really look, it kind of looked fake that I was limping.
Because you were faking a limp.
Yeah,
You broke your leg.
so I took a screwdriver and I whacked myself repeatedly in the leg like that.
No, don't.
And then
I regret
limped.
saying anything.
And then
We've been on
the
track
limp
for
was real.
like 33 minutes. We've been so good. So it was looking fake. I'm rolling back. It was looking kind of fake. And what did you do? What did you actually do?
I literally took the screwdriver and beat myself in the leg with it until it hurt, and then walked across the way.
The decisions and actions of Steve Bender not represent the Battlefield game.
Dice, claro, tuvimos que hacer... Esto es una locura, tuvimos que hacer una captura de una escena de un tipo que estaba herido, pero cuando lo hice no sonaba creíble, así que para poder sacar el resultado que queríamos y que no fuera fingido, pillé un destornillador y me di de hostias con él en la pierna hasta que abriese lo suficiente como para que me costara caminar y pudiese hacer la animación del personaje correctamente. True story, ¿eh?
Trying to imagine, the time I went with my mom to the craft fair, right? And what did that feel like, Oh, I really like how that.
Obviamente está diciendo Discolando, yo no quiero saber nada del tema.
You got going on here. That's right, and just trying to be honest with it. So you do have to have that performance no matter what, whether it's performance capture, motion capture, combat, things like that.
So a couple questions, and then we're going to take a break here. We've covered a couple of the different major disciplines and how animation works. I want to ask you about an aspect that is so important in all MMOs. We talked about it years ago, and we were brainstorming some amazing things and whatever. Emotes.
Yes.
In the PU, we've sort of had the same emotes for quite a while. I know obviously there are plans to as the wheel of development cycles back around and resources can come back to that. Talk to me about your view on emotes and how important emotes are. And
it's really hard to be able to understand how important they are without getting feedback from the community. Like, which emotes are they using the most? Which ones don't they like? Which ones do they like? I see dancing a lot and stuff like that.
In every MMO,
right? We did do a session a while. Oh gosh, this was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
We actually had some backers do some emotes with us and stuff like that. And we've talked about being able to perhaps add emotes related to, we have some hard of hearing.
Están hablando del tema de los emotes, de los personajes, de las de pues eso, bailar o el rude, mil movidas, ¿no? Entonces dice que es realmente difícil escoger este tipo de cosas por la importancia, de saber la importancia de que tienen los emotes sin tener el feedback de la comunidad, la respuesta de la comunidad. De hecho, tuvimos una captura con backers antes de lo que fue la pandemia del COVID.
Have the ability to make those sounds, or whether it's from a physical inability to do it, or like if I'm underwater, right? And I need to communicate something to you, I'm not going to go, "Hey, Jared," right? And things like this. A similar sort of thing. Who says a similar sort of thing can't be true in space? So if I see you at a distance, right, and I need to make some sort of motion or gesture that you can see me from that.
Está resaltando también la importancia para poder comunicarse cuando no podemos o cuando tenemos algún impedimento para poder decirlo por voz, como puede ser estar bajo el agua o estar a una distancia determinada en el espacio, poder hacer señales para poder comunicarnos, que eso también puede ser un emote importante, ¿no?
Because I don't know how they have implemented them as a number, but I can give you a whole bunch of them, but I think I've already exceeded my nastiness quota on the stream.
Give me the first rude that comes to your mind. I feel like you're missing part of it.
This one. We got.
Está haciendo los de rude. Los emotes de rude.
Right? Or this one. Right? That came from. Was inspired by a movie. The other one I have to stand up for. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I can do that.
Last question before the break. Give me your top three. If the clock has come around, you've got the resources, you've got the time, there's nothing else to do. None of the 1,000 other things that are more important have all been done. Top three emotes you'd add to the game right now if you could.
Oh, God.
Top 3 emotes del juego para ti.
Well, thinking about the areas that we're... Well, no, we have that one. I was going to say, oh, that stinks. But we have that one because, I'm drawing a blank here. I'm really drawing a blank here.
I remember we talked...
Salsa dancing.
Salsa dancing.
Salsa dancing.
Maybe a little merengue?
Right? I'd love to do... The one we talked about, I remember when I first got here, we were talking about emotes, is our two-person emotes.
That's what I've been trying to get. I've been trying to lead you to that, the tandem emotes.
Right, absolutely.
That's where I want, that's where Star Citizen can take that step beyond.
Right, you and I can get into the verse and tango together.
Tango together, I do merengue and then it triggers you and it automatically by proximity, it goes, oh, you're doing merengue B.
Claro, una de las cosas que quieren hacer es los emotes conjuntos, que puedes hacer emotes en dos personas, como por ejemplo hacer un baile, empezar a bailar y que eso active si otro está bailando y que se ponga a bailar juntos, ¿no?
And the hands actually connect. I mean, these two-person tandem emotes, that's where I've been slowly...
Claro, tandem de dos personas en emotes, que sería algo en lo que realmente Star Citizen rompería, ¿no?
A game that I worked on also, again, a long time ago, had things where you would go up to a character and he would help you up, say, up above an area. Something like that, where you accept a request from me. So I'm like, would you like to salsa? And you say yes, and then we do a little spin or something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, people are calling out like Portal 2 has a high five and so. I'm talking about in an MMO though. I'm talking about where you can have hundreds and hundreds of people and it's got a target, it's got to figure out who the right target is amongst a crowd of people, not there's one player and there's another player and it automatically knows who your pair is. I'm talking about in an MMO, hugging.
Yeah.
Just a simple ability to hug. I'm a sensitive man. I like to hug.
Now, hugging.
Ahora dice, estamos hablando de algo tan simple como poder dar un abrazo, ¿no? Dice que en primera persona es jodido. En tercera persona no es tanto problema, pero que es algo que en un MMO pues le gustaría, discordando que se puede hacer, que se puede dar un abrazo a alguien en plan de...
Like if you really wanted to get up close and personal with what someone is thinking, there's no better way than to have your camera go straight through their head.
Look forward to that.
En primera persona la cabeza podría atravesar su cabeza, ¿no? Ir directamente hacia...
Drink a drink of water. See what I mean? We're going to be back in a minute. It's still Steve Bender. He's coming back. Stay tuned.
Pollinate 2, Maxil. Muchas gracias, Sugar, Happy Vito y Mauro por la sub 35, 34 y 11 mesazos. Muchas gracias, chavales. Puto descolando.
All right, that was a look at the snowy vistas of Pyro 3. Soon to, well, I shouldn't say soon, one day arriving at the Pyro system. Yeah. So Steve,
Yes.
second half of the show,
Second
you're
half
back as our guest in the second half. We talk about personal stuff. No more work.
Okay.
Work is done.
7 Philadelphia Eagles, cheesesteaks, bourbon old fashioned,
Tiki drinks.
tiki drinks.
I had the worst cheesesteak at Disneyland Paris.
Oh my God. Ooh.
Like it's usually you can count on Disneyland food to be pretty good. Like you go to Epcot and that stuff's all locally sourced from the countries in the pavilion or whatever. So I got kind of spoiled by Epcot, and I thought maybe it would be the same at Disneyland. No, I saw there was Earl of Sandwich, like a whole place dedicated to sandwiches, and they had a Philly cheesesteak on there. I'm like,
Están hablando, dice,
I should
ya
have
hemos
known
acabado de
the
hablar de trabajo, vamos a hablar de vida y tal, y están hablando de tartas de queso, cheesecake.
Yeah, no.
And I was like that should have been the warning right there. I mean, not that Swiss isn't bad, Swiss is good, but it's just, if that's the only option for a Philly cheesesteak.
No, it has to, it's very specific. When I went to a couple places in LA that said they had Philly cheesesteaks and hadn't found one, and I remember going to this
Vale, no son tartas de queso, son cheese stick. Es que claro, esto yo no lo conozco. Joder. Es una especie de sándwich. Para que os hagáis una idea,
I'm in line, ready.
esto es un cheesesteak.
And I said,
What the fuck.
He said,
5 arterias por lo
said
menos
to
se
the
van a tomar
guy,
por el culo aquí.
Came out. I said, so, what do you think about how the Eagles doing this year? And I was expecting him to just give me some sort of answer, And he goes, He goes, you know, I hate that Chip Kelly. And there was another word. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we're talking about this, and someone came up behind, and they were like, I'm sorry, can we order? I mean, why aren't you guys, we're in Los Angeles, why aren't you guys talking about the Rams? And he leaned out and he said, we're talking about Philly football here. You don't like it? Get lost. And I went, okay, this is going to be a good cheesesteak. And I said, he says, so what do you want? I said, give me one with whiz. And he's like, all right. Yep. And that was it.
Whiz wit. Yeah, that's the South Philly experience.
Yep.
I know exactly the food truck.
Me parece que el cheesesteak es de Filadelfia, entiendo. Y además es que están hablando de cosas que... Claro, están hablando de los Philadelphia Eagles porque parece que le gusta el fútbol americano y estaban hablando de eso y entraron a Los Ángeles y hablando de esto y dice, pero ¿por qué no estáis hablando de los Rams? Creo que deben de ser de el equipo de Los Ángeles y tal, y entrar en un sitio a pedir un tal y dice, aquí estamos hablando de los Eagles de Filadelfia, si no te gusta vete, y dijo, pues esto debe ser un buen sitio para poder pillarse un cheesesteak porque es una comida típica para hacer de Filadelfia y tal, están comentando una anécdota, ¿no?
Not like they cooked it and then they insert a bunch of fries. Like, no, from the moment it goes on the grill, it's got the fries in there, so they're all soggy.
Are those fries made of avocados?
O sea, están hablando de una cerdada de comidas que, o sea, es todo revientar arterias en potencia, chavales.
I don't know. I just put it in my face.
No, I have not had that.
I didn't ask the question. I just put it in my face. It was delicious. And it was only $1 more. I'm like, $1 more, and you'll put French fries in my Philly cheesesteak?
For anybody who's asking or questioning though, a Philly cheesesteak is either provolone or whiz. That's it. You got Swiss cheese? Nah. I mean, you can put whatever you want on it.
You're just living in a world of wrong.
But then just get out of Philadelphia.
You're just sitting steeped in an aura of incorrectness.
Yeah.
All right, so I asked this of everybody here on the second question. How'd you get into video games? And why, of everything you can do in video games, of every discipline that exists, did you pick animation?
Claro, está hablando de que o llevan queso cheddar o provolone, los cheesesteaks, ¿no? Que cualquier otro, que no pueden llevar queso suizo o movidas de eso, que eso no es un cheesesteak, ¿no?
High school, and I wanted to go to art school. I was going to be a graphic designer, and I've been accepted to college for that. And we went to the Tyler School of Art Portfolio Day, and showed my portfolio to a bunch of other colleges while we were there. And my mom was like, "We got to go to this one. There's one in Florida." And I was like, "Mom, I'm just beat. I don't want to do it anymore." She's like, "Come on, just one last one." So I went there and talked with them, and they said, well, we have this new thing we're doing called computer animation. This would have been
1948.
Yeah, this would have been the time when everyone was wearing flannel, right? So and
Smelling.
I was playing Street Fighter 2 with my friend Brian, who, if he's watching, Brian, shout out to Brian. And I said to him, if I get accepted at Ringling, then I would go into doing animation. And they said, why don't you come on down? We got to Florida. I saw two girls walk past me in Florida attire, and yeah, that's how I got into animation. So.
And video games, Brian?
Right, video games. So out of school, the year that I graduated school, there were a whole bunch of layoffs in the visual effects industry, and it was tough to get a job. My first job offer that I got, and that was firm, was a company in Portland, Oregon called Image Builder, and they did things like 2D character and special effects for kids games, stuff like that. My first game was called.
Está comentando su aventura de cómo se metió en el mundo de los videojuegos y tal. Dice que él quería estudiar para una escuela de... Quería apuntarse a estudiar arte y que envió varios portfolios a diferentes universidades y al final pues parece como que se desmotivó un poco, pero su madre le animó a que enviara un último a un sitio que estaban haciendo en Florida, que era nuevo, que era relacionado con computadoras y animación en computadoras, y eres algo que por aquel entonces, esto hay que entender que fue hace bastante tiempo y que era algo interesante. Y bueno, pues está contando una anécdota de que él estaba con su colega jugando al Street Fighter y que comentaban la movida de que por lo visto pues había dos chicas allí y se bajaron a Florida y tal, y bueno, pues a partir de ahí pues empezaron a meterse en lo que es o sea, aceptó lo que es el tema de introducirse allí en la universidad esta de animación con computadoras. Y aparte de eso, pues dice que luego pues su primera compañía fue una compañía llamada Image Builders o algo así, creo que se llamaba.
You stayed in the game industry pretty consistently. You know, it's not uncommon for people to come in and then go somewhere else for a while and then find their way back.
I've moonlighted freelance, some non-games industry stuff from time to time, but almost entirely. Like as
Claro, dice que dice Discolando que normalmente en el mundo este de la industria de los videojuegos que se va y se viene de varios sitios y tal. Y dice que dice en una época en la que he estado trabajando de freelance, pero realmente me he estado dedicando a esto toda mi vida.
So yeah, so it's not uncommon to come in and go out and like this. But yeah, so you've been in the industry pretty consistently then for over 2 decades at least now. It sounds like
1998.
1998. Wow.
Dice que lleva dedicándose a la industria del videojuego, trabajando en la industria del videojuego desde 1998. O sea que tiene ya un recorrido.
When you think about the things you've worked on, not Star Citizen, before Star Citizen and Squadron like this, and I ask for a highlight, something that you're particularly proud of, what comes to mind?
The Crisis series.
Crisis?
Hands down. Because there's a lot of similarities that I feel at times here at CIG with that, because I remember we didn't know what we couldn't do. So
Claro, están comentando dice, algo que destacarías de tu trayectoria, dice, fue la serie de Crysis, de cuando estuvo trabajando en Crytek y cuando hicieron los Crysis. Y que dice que hay algo que tiene similitudes con lo que estamos haciendo aquí en lo que es Cloud Imperium Games, y es que a veces no sabemos qué es lo que no podemos hacer, ¿no?
you know, number 1, Warhead 2 and 3.
Se refiere a como logro, qué es lo que no podemos lograr.
And just the quality of the animation, the things, little details and stuff like that someone said to me just the other day, it was yesterday I think, was asking me about Crisis 3, and they said that they remember playing the game, and when they were switching suit modes and reloading, that the actual animation of reloading the weapon was different in every suit mode. So you had this sort of in power mode, he'd slam that thing forward, and in speed mode it was like, and in stealth it was pulling it back and
very quietly pushing it forward.
Yeah, it was sort of like riding.
Claro, dice que una de las cosas que se acuerda es de que, haciendo con el equipo, de que jugaron al Crysis 3 y que se acuerda de uno de los detalles de que a la hora de recargar un arma, se recargaba el arma de diferente manera dependiendo del modo en el que el traje estuviera. Si estaba en modo sigilo, pues que lo hacía como más silencioso, más callado, o si no, pues lo hacía normal y lo hacía súper rápido.
Person view and those hands and how that your hands and what you do convey your character and their emotion in the first person view.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, I mean,
El hecho de haber logrado eso, pues de que lo que hacías con las manos, pues llegaba a dar la que es la indicación de lo que estaba haciendo tu personaje, de esas sensaciones, de haber logrado eso en esa época, pues es algo lo que está orgulloso, ¿no?
Something feeling tangible and believable and immersive, if we can say the name.
I think that's one thing though that it's about when it comes, especially in first person, and we have a lot of work still to do on our first person animations and our first person feel to really dial that down and craft it down to something that feels solid. It's not, I like to say that it's not about necessarily what you're doing, it's about the feel of it, especially in the camera, right? When the way that the camera moves, if you're a game that does that sort of thing, the way that the camera moves can really make an effect on how the player perceives what's
Claro, está comentando que no solo son los gestos que hace el personaje, sino que la forma en la que la cámara se mueve, que muchas veces puede alterar o puede ser crucial para ver cómo el jugador percibe lo que es la escena que está sucediendo, ¿no?
Shout out to my friend Brian, if you're watching. Here's one for you. This is water, by the way.
And special shout out to Boone's Bonin, who said it several times during the show. This talk is really useless. Thanks for watching. All right, so that was animation director, I was going to say Steve Bender.
There we go.
I'm Jared Huckabee. That's it for this episode of Star Citizen Live, the animation vocation. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Be sure to check out the robertspaceinterest.com website and information for more on Xenothread and everything else that's going on. I think Xylo put up a thing last night. Its time zones are different. I don't know exactly when it was, but I woke up this morning and it was there. So check that out. And we'll be back next week with Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live. As for what's going to be on it, it's actually in flux right now. So. We had a couple options, so stay tuned. You'll find out when you watch it. Take care, everybody. Be nice to each other. And if you haven't gotten enough of me today, in a couple hours, Beacon, the Belgian Star Citizen fan-run convention, is having a 24-hour live stream that starts at like 6 p.m. It starts in like an hour or two, and I'm a guest. I'm actually going to be on the other side of the thing, just answering questions in like a couple hours. You can check that out. I think it's twitch.tv/Beacon under events. I don't know. Belgian Star Citizen Fan Convention. Put that into Google and you'll find what you need. Take care and we'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.
Vale, está comentando Discolando que va a ir a la Beacon. Que es una especie de convención como la que hay de Con 42 y que va a estar respondiendo preguntas de la peña. Aparte de eso, ha dicho que ha puesto Silo mensaje, que lo vimos, yo creo que ya lo vimos este mensaje en Spectrum relacionado con la Xenothread y tal, que han dicho también que sobre el Inside Star Citizen de la semana que viene, el Star Citizen Live, que todavía no saben qué van a hacer, que tienen un par de opciones ahí. Sí, vale. O sea que simplemente lo de la Xenothread, lo de la Xenocrab, diciendo que es algo necesario para el desarrollo y ya está, ¿no? Y ya estaría. Voy a necesitar un momentito, chavales. Vengo ya mismo.